Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of Apple TV Plus brand new science fiction horror action film, The Gorge, which is directed by Scott Derrickson. It stars Miles Teller, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Sigourney Weaver. And this film is about two elite snipers who are ordered to guard a deep gorge without knowing what lies inside. This was a film that popped up on my radar a couple of weeks ago. I knew nothing about this film, and this is right up my alley. You know, horror and science fiction action. Yep, sign me up. But for some strange reason, I didn't know anything about it. But thankfully got to see it over this past weekend, just in time for Valentine's Day. We get this kind of romantic horror film. It's a weird combination, but if anybody can pull it off, I felt it would be Scott Derrickson, the director of this film. Scott Derrickson has directed some of my favorite horror films in the past 20 years. Even outside of horror, he has done a really good job, with Doctor Strange, the first Doctor Strange, but his horror filmography is phenomenal. Oh my God, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I think that was his first film. I could be wrong on that, but either way, that was the first film of his that I saw. I thought it was phenomenal. Sinister, The Black Phone from a couple of years ago. The list goes on and on. The dude is amazing. But I wanted to see how we were going to mash up these two genres. Was it going to be cheesy? Because it felt kind of cheesy from the trailers that they released of The Gorge. No, it wasn't. I really enjoyed The Gorge. And The Gorge is one of these films that I would say in a couple of months' time, maybe middle of the year, towards the end of the year, people are going to look back at The Gorge as probably one of the best films of the year. Now, I'm not saying Academy Award consideration, towards the end of the year, but I mean, as a solid film, this was a really good film. Caught me completely off guard. Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy, two not really up and coming because they're here, but two young actors in Hollywood who have an impressive resume of their own. Miles Teller, just last year, 2 years ago with Top Gun Maverick, did a phenomenal job. He's done a phenomenal job in pretty much everything else that he's been a part of. He was a part of the Divergent film franchise. He unfortunately was a part of that Fantastic Four uh, reboot that they attempted a few years back. War Dogs was pretty good, but I really fell in love with this dude when it came to Whiplash. Whiplash is still one of my top 10 favorite movies ever made. I love that movie, and I'm not even into jazz like that, but it got me into jazz, that film, and his performance, him and J.K. Simmons were just that stuff that you see shown in acting classes. This is how you act. And man, phenomenal. I've been on board, been on the Miles Teller train ever since that. Anya Taylor-Joy broke out in The Witch a few years back. Then she took a stab at Split and the sequel Glass, which I'm not faulting her for that. And just recently we saw her in Furiosa, the Mad Max saga, which once again, not faulting her for that either. What else could she have done? And the Queen's Gambit, that show that was on Netflix. I thought, at least I think that she's one of these actresses who is completely versatile. Any film genre that you stick her in, she nails it. But horror is where she cut her teeth at. So she had no trepidations about getting into this role. This movie, The Gorge, could have came off as just a throwaway screaming movie. and nobody would have thought too much of it. And I know a lot of people probably didn't even peep it out when it popped up because it's a streaming movie. But and honestly, it played a part in my mind too. 'Cause I was like, well, this is something with these actors, the filmmakers behind it, and all this here. You would think this would be released in the theaters, but they dumped it on Apple TV Plus, whatever. So I don't have to rush to go see it. That's the thing. But went on ahead and watched. I'm like, man. Now 30 minutes into this movie, I was like, yeah, I can see why this is on streaming. And when I finished watching the movie, I'm like, man, I wouldn't mind seeing this in the theater. This was pretty good. The action, the visuals, pretty doggone good here. I'm so impressed with Scott Derrickson. Scott Derrickson, once again, just similar to what I was alluding to when it came to Anya Taylor-Joy with her versatility. Scott Derrickson is so versatile in his filmmaking as well. Yes, he's a horror director. He has directed some of the best horror films in the last 20 years, but this guy took it to another level here, as far as the relationship. The relationship between Miles Taylor's character and Anya Taylor-Joy's character, they're separated by this gorge, but over time, I guess you could say they had a courting period. It's a dating period between the two, communicating with chalkboards and whatnot, and virtually falling in love, and you bought it. And that's the part that I was like, man, this is gonna come off super cheesy. How are they gonna pull this off? But it was so real. It just felt real. And so when they do find a way to connect physically, it was earned, and we didn't have to wait till the last 10 minutes of the movie to get that. We were pretty early on when we get to this section where they actually link up. And then insanity ensues after that when they're trapped in the gorge and have to fight their way out together and save one another. And it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful journey that these two went on. It just, unfortunately, it was at the gates of hell. But if they could get through that, they could get through anything. They earned their relationship, which is a testament to the pacing and tone of this film. And that's why Scott Derrickson gets all the kudos in the world from me. Now, he gets his moment to shine. He gets a few moments to shine and show that he is still one of the best horror directors out there, because there are some scenes in here where you're frightened to death, things popping up out of nowhere. The sequence with the gorge, which is, I would say, the second act of this movie, was terrifying. This is truly a situation you do not want to find yourself in. And he did an excellent job of showing that, because our two leads who were in this gorge, the only reason they have a fighting chance is because of their military training. It's because of who they are. And it was hell for them. And so me falling into that gorge, I would die pretty much instantly. It would be probably a 5-minute fight for me. And I'm being kind there. I'm trying to give myself some credit. Might take one out with me, but it's an impossible task in that gorge. It is described as the gateway to hell early on in the film, and when you get in there, yes, you can tell it's the gateway to hell. The relationship, the acting performances of our two leads here, Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy, phenomenal. Those two are phenomenal. Great on screen together, instant chemistry. Like I said earlier, I bought their romance. I bought that they fell in love with one another. The loneliness that they had going into this situation and going through their own personal battles, if you will, which led them to this point, it was displayed fairly well. you know, you sympathize with Miles Teller's character who's going through PTSD and other issues, and Anya Taylor-Joy the same. You know, they're just lonely people. They're snipers. You know, if you ever do research on snipers, they're lonely people because they only rely on their own skills. You know, it's not like they have a brigade with them. They are the brigade. So there are lonely people by definition, and for them to find a connection with somebody else, ironically with the same issues, is a beautiful thing to watch. And that's really the crust of this movie. Yes, you have your little demon things in this gorge and the horror aspect and the action sequences that take place throughout the film, but at its core, this is a romantic drama, and it's a beautifully displayed romantic drama just in time for Valentine's Day over the weekend. It was really done. It was really done well. My only little nitpicks of this movie, I love Sigourney Weaver, but her character wasn't it. Like I said, this isn't on her. It's just a very underwritten character, a very unnecessary character. Really, it's she was just the face of the bigger antagonist of this film, and she was just there to be there for the couple of scenes that she was in there for. You know, I would have liked to see more of her character. Why is this organization the way it is? And you know, it just didn't have it came off mustache twirling villain once we get the big reveal and all this other stuff. It was kind of weird. I probably spoiled it. Well, it ain't a spoiler. I mean, you can pretty much I knew the instant she popped up on screen, which was like the first 10 minutes. Yeah, she's the villain. She's the so you know it's not a spoiler. I promise you'll still enjoy this film. I did. I super enjoyed The Gorge, which gets a letter grade of a B. Yeah, it was really good, man. I'm shocked on how good it is. I know over time it's probably gonna grow. It's one of those films, you know, that you think about something, or you think about a certain scene, or you think about a performance or a line from the movie and how this connects to that, and you start appreciating it even more. Really good film. I don't think you'll get bored. You'll get tired. Click off of it and go watch something else. Go do something else. It's not one of these movies that you can play in the background while you're doing chores. You really sit down and watch this movie unfold. I would love to know, what did you think of The Gorge? Did you enjoy it, or is it not your cup of tea? Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel. Like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to The Concession Stand. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Apple TV Plus brand new science fiction horror action film, The Gorge. I want you all to know that I love you, continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.